Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Diksha Bisla and this is World DNA. Let's start with the headlines. US says it has apprehended another oil tanker off the Venezuelan coast. Video shows US Coast Guard personnel boarding the tanker last docked in Venezuela in a pre-dawn operation. President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Ukraine and its European allies should continue to support current US-led peace talks. Zelensky says only the US is capable of persuading Russia to end the war and calls on Washington to increase pressure on Moscow. At least 16 files have disappeared from the US Justice Department's public webpage for documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, including a photograph showing US President Donald Trump, and this is less than a day after they were posted. Bangladesh youth leader Sharif Osman Hadi laid to rest. His supporters issue a 24-hour ultimatum to Home Ministry demanding report on arrest of his killers. Hadi was shot by assailants on December 12th and succumbed to his injuries 6 days later. Australia begins day of reflection for the victims of the Bondi Beach attack. Millions will light candles and observe a minute's silence today, a week after a pair of gunmen fired into crowds at a Jewish festival on Sydney's most famous beach and killed 15 people. Elon Musk's net worth has surged to an unprecedented $749 billion, making him the first person in history worth more than $700 billion after the Delaware Supreme Court reinstated a massive Tesla pay package, which is worth $139 billion that was voided by a lower court. The US military boarded another oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. Now, this is the second time in 2 weeks that US forces have interdicted a tanker in the region, and comes days after President Donald Trump announced a blockade of sanctioned oil vessels heading to and leaving Venezuela. However, the tanker is not under US sanctions. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem shared an unclassified video of a US helicopter landing personnel on a vessel called Centuries. According to Marine Traffic, a crude oil tanker flying under the flag of Panama operates under the name and was recently spotted near the Venezuelan coast. Reports citing US officials said that the action was a consented boarding, with the tanker stopping voluntarily and allowing US forces to board it. Now, it is unclear if the US will take control of the oil, as it did with the vessel Skipper, the first of its kind seized on December 10th. Venezuela has condemned the action as theft and kidnapping. In a statement published on social media, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez said that these acts will not go unpunished, adding that those responsible for these serious events will answer to justice and to history for their criminal conduct. The seizure of oil tankers is the latest salvo in a US pressure campaign against Venezuela. Trump administration is also conducting a series of attacks on vessels in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific Ocean that his administration alleges are smuggling drugs into the United States. At least 104 people have been killed so far. The US military has also beefed up its presence in the Caribbean in recent months. The US military was seen operating in Puerto Rico on Saturday, that is December 20th, with the US Air Force C-17 Globemaster III aircraft taking off from Mercedita Airport in Ponce. Separately, a US Navy guided missile destroyer, the USS Thomas Hudner, departed from the port of the Americas on Puerto Rico's southern coast. Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro says the campaign is part of a wider effort to carry out a regime change in Caracas. Meanwhile, Argentina's President Javier Milei praises Trump's pressure campaign on Venezuela. Speaking at a Mercosur summit, Milei said that time for a timid approach on this matter has run out.
Argentina welcomes the pressure from the United States and Donald Trump to free the Venezuelan people. The time for a timid approach on this matter has run out.
At the summit, Brazilian President Lula da Silva has warned that any U.S. military action in Venezuela would spark a humanitarian catastrophe. On Thursday, Lula said he was very worried about the mounting crisis on Brazil's doorstep and was prepared to serve as a mediator to avert armed conflict.
Four decades after the Falklands War, the South American continent is once again haunted by the military presence of an extra-regional power. The limits of international law are being tested. An armed intervention in Venezuela would be a humanitarian catastrophe for the hemisphere and a dangerous precedent for the world.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling on the United States to step up pressure on Russia to end the war, and urging Ukraine and its European allies to support the current US-led peace negotiations that are being held in Miami. But Zelensky says that only US and its President Donald Trump have the power to push the Kremlin towards peace, though he remains skeptical about the latest negotiations if they will produce a breakthrough.
In my view, the United States should exert slightly stronger pressure on the Russians and leave them no alternatives, because if this is not diplomacy, then America must clearly say, if not diplomacy, there will be full pressure, a very strong weapons package for Ukraine, very strong support for Ukraine, and comprehensive U.S. sanctions imposed on the entire Russian economy and on all sectors that generate revenue for Russia.
On the other hand, Russian President Vladimir Putin's special envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, described the discussions as constructive. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio promised not to force Ukraine into any agreement, saying no deal would move forward without Kiev's consent, and added that he may join the Miami talks. Now, the talks follow renewed Russian offensives, with Moscow claiming the capture of two villages in Ukraine's Sumy and Donetsk regions. In Odessa, the death toll from a Russian ballistic missile strike on port infrastructure has risen to 8, with almost 36 people said to be wounded. Putin has vowed to press ahead with military operations while suggesting that strikes could pause to allow Ukraine to hold elections, a proposal that Zelensky has rejected. Zelensky says that Ukraine cannot independently finance its armed forces at a strength of 800,000 personnel and is considering partial funding with support from its international partners. But Sweden has announced it will provide Kiev with $200 million in direct budget support in 2026, funding public services, pensions, healthcare, and energy needs. Japan has committed nearly $6 billion in financial assistance for the coming year, aimed at strengthening Ukraine's economy and defense. And in a sharp detour from foreign policy discussions, Russian President Vladimir Putin's marathon annual press conference effectively turned into an exercise of ask me anything. Ordinary Russians grabbed this opportunity to go no holds barred, to vent their views, and this is with a dash of bizarreness. No points for guessing, but the dominant theme of the Putin presser was Russia's war in Ukraine, and some strong comments were made about it. However, Putin also fielded a couple of offbeat questions from journalists and members of the public who seized their chance to quiz him on any topic that they liked. The questions featured everything from aliens in outer space to if the Kremlin leader takes the wheel driving around Moscow. Well, Putin replied to the driving question in the affirmative, saying that he does at times. Sarcastic messages, rogue comments, and even digs at the leader flashed up on a big screen, along with a direct line phone-in. There was also an unusual incident where a 23-year-old journalist crashed in on the live stream moment to propose to his girlfriend while millions watched. He also extended a wedding invitation to the Russian president himself.
Hello, my name is Kirill Bazanov, Channel 4, Yekaterinburg.
You are dressed as if you are already fully set for the marriage ceremony.
Yes, indeed. This sign is not an accident. I know that my girlfriend is watching this press conference now. Olya, dear, please marry me.
However, a moment that broke the internet was an unexpected confession from President Putin himself when he reportedly said that he was in love. However, he chose not to divulge anything more. Meanwhile, some people did ask practical questions, such as why Russia's economy went worse than that of Papua New Guinea. And to this, Putin replied that the cooling down of the Russian economy was a quote-unquote conscious decision.
The goal was set to reduce inflation to at least 6%, but by the end of the year, it will likely be below 6%, 5.7, 5.8%. However, the slowdown in economic growth is a deliberate step, the price paid for maintaining the quality of the economy and macroeconomic indicators.
However, many slammed the presser, calling it outrightly staged. The Kremlin did not immediately comment on those allegations. Following days of protests and violence, Bangladesh youth leader Sharif Osman Hadi was laid to rest on Saturday amid tight security. Massive crowds gathered for the funeral at the Central Mosque of Dhaka University. Chief Advisor of Bangladesh's interim government, Mohammad Yunus, and Army Chief General Waqaruzzaman attended the funeral. Hadi was shot by masked gunmen last week while leaving a mosque in Dhaka. He was later admitted to a hospital in Singapore, where he died on Thursday. After the burial, the protesters gathered in Shahbag intersection. Hadi's organization, Inqilab Montreux, gave a 24-hour ultimatum to the Home Ministry to report the progress in arresting the killers. The group also demanded the resignation of Home Affairs Advisor and Special Assistant to the Chief Advisor if they failed to arrest the perpetrators till Sunday evening. Hadi's death triggered massive protests and violent unrest in Bangladesh. As news of the death spread, people set fire to several buildings in Dhaka, including the offices of leading newspapers, Prothomalo and the Daily Star. Cultural institutions and the residence of a former minister were also attacked, while a Hindu worker was killed and set on fire by a rampaging mob. 27-year-old Deepu Chandradas was killed in Mehman Singh after being accused of blasphemy. Chief Advisor Mohammad Yunus said that at least 10 people have been arrested in connection to this beating and murder of Das. Rights group Amnesty International on Saturday expressed alarm over Das's lynching and urged Bangladesh's interim government to carry out prompt, independent and impartial investigation into Hadi's killing and the violence that followed. Parallel to this, security around the Indian Assistant High Commission office and the Visa Application Centre in northeastern city of Sylhet has also been raised. And according to police, security was beefed up on Friday morning at the Assistant High Commission. Meanwhile, alleged atrocities against minorities has also sparked anger in India. A torchlight procession was organized at Siliguri in West Bengal, protesting against the alleged ongoing atrocities and systemic persecution of the minority Hindu community in Bangladesh. During the protest, the demonstrators also burned an effigy of Bangladesh Chief Advisor Mohammad Yunus. Ties between Bangladesh and India have become strained since the July uprising, with Dhaka demanding New Delhi to extradite former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who has been sentenced to death in absentia after being charged with crimes against humanity. Now, Hasina has denounced her trial and the verdict, calling it a travesty of justice and vowed to continue serving her people. All right, now shifting our focus to West Asia, Israel's military says it killed 2 Palestinians in the northern occupied West Bank. And this is during separate incidents involving its troops. According to the army, during an operation in the town of Kabatia on Palestinian through a block towards Israeli soldiers, troops responded by opening fire, killing him. And in another incident, the military says a second Palestinian threw an explosive device at soldiers and was also shot dead. The Israeli military said that no soldiers were injured in either of the incident. Separately, representatives from the United States, Egypt, Qatar and Turkey met in Miami, Florida and discussed the next steps in efforts to advance a ceasefire in Gaza. A joint statement released by US envoy Steve Witkoff said that the talks focused on reviewing the framework and coordinating efforts to move the ceasefire plan forward. The Israeli military also announced that troops from the Kefir Brigade have completed a 2-month deployment along the Yellow Line in the southern Gaza Strip and are now withdrawing from the area. The unit is being replaced by the 188th Armored Brigade, and during their deployment, the military says that the Kefir Brigade, working alongside the Yahalom Engineering Unit, dismantled hundreds of militant infrastructure sites. These included a tunnel approximately 2 kilometers long, as well as another tunnel system stretching hundreds of meters beneath the Khan Yunis area. The army says about 20 militants were killed during these operations. Israeli forces under the Southern Command remain positioned in the area in line with the ceasefire agreement and say they will continue operations to counter any immediate threat. In Tel Aviv, Israelis gathered for a protest calling on the government to establish a state commission of inquiry into the events of October 7, 2023. Demonstrators accused Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government of failing to take responsibility for the attack. Protesters also highlighted the case of Fran Willi, the last Israeli hostage believed to have been killed and whose body has not yet been recovered from Gaza. They said recovering Willi's remains is essential to a US brokered plan aimed at securing lasting peace between Israel and Gaza. Hundreds of Santa Clauses swapped sleighs for motorcycles in Sofia, roaring through the Bulgarian capital ahead of Christmas. The festive parade brought smiles to shoppers while raising money for children's charities. Organizers say that up to 300 Santas took part in the year's ride. Take a look. After a decline caused by bouts about artificial intelligence hype and worries about the extent of Federal Reserve policy easing, investors re-enter the market late in the week. Still, investors continue to bet on 2 Fed rate cuts next year, keeping gold well bid. Well, the real question still remains, will we get a Santa rally? Well, in broader markets, gold won the week with stocks and cryptos ending in the red. Crude extended its decline, falling to multi-year lows. For the week, benchmark Brent closed over 1% in the red. The dollar managed to edge higher in a volatile week, while the yen giving up its gains. Japan's 10-year treasury yields jumped to the highest since 1999. The trades through the week were the opposite of Friday. Crypto continues to be volatile, with Bitcoin ending the week below $88,500. Now, with major assets covered, let's shift focus to the Asia-Pacific stock markets. All year, Asian markets have braced for something big to break. The latest moves knocked some of the year's biggest winners off recent highs as tariff concerns resurfaced. Bond yields have spiked, then tumbled, and then spiked again. Currencies have swung wildly. For the week, China slowed more nuanced trades, but other equity benchmarks in the region ended the week with modest losses. Japanese stocks fell strongly after the central bank's rate hike. In the Americas, several tech companies' stocks which have come under fire for the lofty AI spending ambitions rallied to boost stock prices on Friday. While that helped the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq erase some of their early weekly losses, benchmarks ended in the red. However, Canadian and Brazilian benchmarks defied those losses to end the week in the green. Now, looking across the Atlantic, European stocks close out the week with solid gains. UK's FTSE led in the region, with the Bank of England delivering a rate cut despite a deep divide within the policymakers. Rest of the benchmarks also closed out the week in the green. Now, having looked at market moves, let's now turn to the overall economic outlook. In Asia, India remains the best performing major economy in the world. The latest data underscores the country's solid growth. The uncertainty from US President Donald Trump's trade policies is weighing on the region's growth outlook. But in addition to that, China continues to battle a property recession and a deep deflation from weak demand. In the Americas, mixed messages on the macro front clearly reflect a clouded outlook. The benign inflation report has boosted Fed rate cuts bet, but big Wall Street banks caution that stagflation risks are on the rise. Trump's trade rhetoric has extended to other regional economies as well, with a negative outlook for Canada and Brazil. In Europe, the standard norm across the region is a muted economic environment. Europe's growth engine, Germany, is struggling to get its manufacturing activity back on track. GDP in the UK contracted for the second straight month in October, with no growth seen since June. And in addition to those concerns, Trump's trade brinksmanship is hurting the economic outlook for the region. Hip-hop heavyweights lit up South Los Angeles at Kendrick Lamar, Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre made surprise appearances at an annual Christmas concert and toy drive, turning a community celebration into an unforgettable night. More about this in our next story. Take a look. And with that, it's time for us to slip into a very short break. But don't go anywhere. Coming up on the other side, residents of Davao City in the southern Philippines are speaking out after their city was dragged into the global spotlight following the deadly Bondi Beach attack. All this and more coming up on the other side. Stay tuned. You're watching WION World this morning.
A 2025 love story. Create an AI persona. Fall head over heels. Get married. Adopt an AI pet. Call it Mufflin. Robots on the football field and sparring in a ring. What a year it's been for humanity's tryst with tech. We are hooked to ChatGPT and Gemini. With some help from these gents, Time's calling them the architects of AI. Don't miss the very last episode of Tech It Out in 2025, only on WION at these times.
Mission Sustainability Conclave 2025.
You can move to a driverless delivery. I think is overhyped. I think Indian roads and Indian conditions with driver only is so difficult to do delivery. Driverless, I think I can't imagine.
One of the reasons why people don't adopt electric vehicles is what will happen if something breaks. Where is the service? Where is the after sales?
From horse cart to steam engine to internal combustion engine, EV will be the cheapest and therefore the most affordable.
Watch Mission Sustainability. No action, not an option. At these times.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
Mission Sustainability Conclave 2025.
Biofuel is certainly going to be sustainable fuel that's going to be used in the vehicles, whether it is surface transport or the aviation fuel.
policy is a key part of the any segment, particularly in solar, wind or green energy or green hydrogen or anything.
There's a lot of different opportunities for innovation to sort of come into the piece to not only create new ways to generate energy but overcome the land issue, because as I say, it's enormously complex, even in a country like Australia where there is a lot of land there.
Watch Mission Sustainability. No action, not an option at these times.
As cinephiles reel from the shocking death of filmmaker Rob Reiner, we look at the cinema icon's rich legacy. Soak in the holiday spirit with our list of Christmas movies. And know all about the defining K-pop moments of 2025. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
This week on the West Asia Post, Hamas is weakened but still in control. A ceasefire after 2 years of war with Israel is allowing the group to rebuild. Nuclear rhetoric between Israel and Iran is heating up. Israel says it has a duty to stop Iran from reviving its nuclear program. And in Yemen, the Houthi movement is stepping up military preparations, fueling fears of a clash with Southern Transitional Council forces.
Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis, only on WION. World is One.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
As cinephiles reel from the shocking death of filmmaker Rob Reiner, we look at the cinema icon's rich legacy. Soak in the holiday spirit with our list of Christmas movies. And know all about the defining K-pop moments of 2025. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
Vielleicht nur